Namaste Vidya. Myself JBN Neha Sani from Physiotherapy and Diagnostics, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. I am going to tell you about the anatomy of hip joint. Hip joint is a ball and socket variety of synovial type of joint. It is a multi-axial joint because it allows movement in three planes, that is transverse, vertical and anteroposterior. It is one of the most stable joint in the body. The articular surface of hip joint are reciprocally curved. Superior surface of femur and acetabulum sustain greatest pressure. So the acetabulum, it is possessing a Y-shaped epiphyseal cartilage. In this diagram we can see the Y-shaped epiphyseal cartilage, which is start to ossify at 12 years and fuse at 16 to 17 years. Acetabulum notch is inferior. Here there is non-articular fossa which is thin and it is related to pad of fat and proprioceptive nerves. So the acetabular fossa is this point. This is the acetabular fossa where we can find the fat and the proprioceptive nerve fibers. At this place we have semilunar articular surface which is covered with hyaline cartilage. So this acetabular at the margins, it is covered with this semilunar articular cartilage which is hyaline cartilage. This deepens the acetabular labrum. This is deepened again by the acetabular labrum, which is a wedge-shaped fibrocartilage. So two cartilages are found at this surface. Then the another articular surface is head of femur, which is forming 2/3 part of the complete sphere. It is possessing a pit for ligamentum teres. It is covered with articular cartilage again, which is of hyaline type. Articular cartilage is thicker in the posterior and superior aspect. So this is the articular surfaces of the hip joint, where we can see the head of femur covered with hyaline cartilage and the acetabular cavity covered with the fibrocartilage, which is known as acetabular labrum. This is used for deepening the cavity of the acetabulum. Then femur. In the femur we have the trabeculae, which is the column. These develop along the lines of stress, that is the force transmission. Here we can see the calcar femoral, which is the cortical bone in the inferior aspect of the neck. So this is the calcar femoral, which is developing because along the line of stress. Then the ligaments of the hip joint. First ligament for any synovial joint is the capsule of the hip joint. The attachments are proximally it is attached to the margins of the acetabular fossa, base of the labrum, and distally it is attached anterior to the intertrochanteric line. Inferiorly, the femoral neck close to the lesser trochanter. So in the diagram we can see the fibrous capsule. Posteriorly 1 cm medial to the intertrochanteric crest due to insertion of obturator externus. So on the posterior side it is not attached on the intertrochanteric crest. This is the intertrochanteric crest. Over here the capsule is not attached. It is lying 1 cm medial from it. Capsule of the hip is strongest superiorly. Iliopsoas vas is lying anteriorly, and laterally it is supported by the deep fibers of gluteus minimus. Then the retinacular fibers. These are the fibers of fibrous capsule reflected along the neck to the articular margin. These are retinacular fibers. They have the blood supply to the head run under the retinacular fibers. So in the diagram we can see the retinacular fibers of the fibrous capsule. Then the another ligament of the hip joint are acetabular labrum, transverse ligament, ligament of Had, iliofemoral ligament, pubofemoral ligament, ischiofemoral ligament, and the zona orbicularis. So the transverse ligament, it is a part of the labrum. It is transversely oriented. It is connecting the two ends of the acetabular labrum. Then the ligamentum teres, it is triangular again. Its base is attached to the transverse ligament and the apex is attached on the pit which is lying on the head of femur. It is containing the blood supply to the epiphyses from the obturator artery. Next ligament is iliofemoral ligament. In the diagram we can easily see the iliofemoral ligament. It is a Y-shaped ligament. It is formed by the thickening of the fibrous capsule in the lower half of the anterior inferior iliac spine and the joining acetabulum. Distally, it is attached to the intertrochanteric line in the upper and the lower parts. So on the anterior side we can see the iliofemoral ligament. One end is attached on the anterior inferior iliac spine, other end is attached on the intertrochanteric line. And on the posterior side we can see the ischiofemoral ligament. Iliofemoral ligament is one of the strongest ligament of the human body. It tightens in extension. It helps to maintain the erect posture. The facet on the anterior aspect of the neck and it prevents hyperextension. Then the pubofemoral ligament on the anterior side we can see it is from superior ramus of pubis up to the inferior part of the intertrochanteric line. So this is the pubofemoral ligament. It is relatively weak but it prevents abduction. Then on the posterior side we can see the ischiofemoral ligament, ischium to the posterior part of the joint up to the greater trochanter. It is again medial to the intertrochanteric crest. Then inside these ligaments we can find the synovial membrane. It lines the capsule and the non-articular surfaces. It is again reflects along the femoral neck to the edge of the femoral head. Then this synovial membrane forms the bursae. The important bursae around the hip joint are trochanteric bursa, which separates the deep aspect of the gluteus maximus from the greater trochanter. In the diagram we can see the trochanteric bursa. Then gluteofemoral bursa, which separates the iliotibial tract from the superior part of the proximal attachment of vastus lateralis. And ischial bursa, which separates the inferior border of gluteus maximus from ischial tuberosity. Then the blood supply to the head of femur is by obturator artery and the branches of medial and the lateral circumflex femoral arteries, which are the branches of femoral artery. So these are the branches from the femoral artery. Also, superior inferior gluteal arteries supplies the hip joint. Then the nerve supply of the hip joint is via femoral nerve, obturator nerve, superior gluteal nerve, nerve to quadratus femoris, and also branches of sciatic nerve. Then come to the movements of hip joint. The movements are, first is flexion. So flexion is done by the iliopsoas muscle. In the diagram we can see the flexion is when the thighs move upward. So iliopsoas are involved in the anterior pelvic tilt and the trunk flexion with reversed origin. Then extension. Extension is done by the muscles at the back of the hip, that is the hamstring. It is done by the long head of biceps, semitendinosus and semimembranosus muscle along with adductor magnus. Of course, the strongest extensor of the hip joint is the gluteus maximus. The hip is flexed up to 45 degrees. Then adduction. Adduction is when the thighs moves medially towards the midline. And it is done by the adductor muscles, that is adductor longus, adductor brevis, adductor magnus. These are the powerful hip adductors. Next is the abduction movement. Abduction is when the thigh is pulled laterally, that is away from the midline. The abductors are gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Then medial rotation. It is when the knee and the foot is turned medially. Generally, it is a weak movement and it is done by gluteus medius and minimus. So, abductors are medial rotators. Then lateral rotators. This is when the knee and the foot is moved laterally. The lateral rotation is done by the gluteus maximus and the 6 small muscles which are termed as short lateral rotators, which includes the piriformis, obturator internus and externus, the gemella superior and gemellus inferior, and the quadratus femoris. Most of them are small. The strongest muscle for lateral rotation is gluteus maximus. Now the range of all these movements are given here. The flexion is done up to 90 degree with the knee extended and up to 120 degree when the knee is flexed. Hip extension is done up to 20 degree. Abduction is done up to 50 degree. Adduction is up to 30. Medial and lateral rotation is up to 50 degrees. Then come to the applied, that is Trendelenburg test. So in the Trendelenburg test, we assess the potency of the gluteus medius, if it is normal or it is paralyzed. So for this, the patient is asked to stand on one leg. The gluteus medius of support the leg should contract and elevate the hip of the unsupported side. If there is weakness of gluteus medius is not functioning, then the hip of the unsupported side will remain level or may drop. If it is drop, it is the positive sign. Next is fractured neck. So at the neck of the femur, it can be fractured because it is the most common site for the fracture of the neck, fracture of the femur. It is the weakest point, and upon the position of the fracture, it can be divided into intracapsular or extracapsular. If the fracture is occurring inside the capsular attachment, it is known as intracapsular fracture. If the fracture is outside the capsular attachment, it is known as extracapsular fracture. Extracapsular fracture is further subdivided into trochanteric because of the fracture of the trochanter, intertrochanteric or transtrochanteric if the fracture line is between the greater and the lesser trochanter, and subtrochanteric if the fracture line is below the lesser trochanter. Then apophysitis. Apophysitis is a condition in which epiphysis, that is growth plate, become inflamed. For example, in the case of ileum, it is known as ileum apophysitis. This means inflammation. Then avulsion fracture. Avulsion means pull. So in avulsion fracture is a condition in which a tendon that connects a bone to a muscle pull away a part of the bone. So this fracture is termed as avulsion. Now if there is pain in the hip joint in case of child which is of 5 to 10 years and there is limitation of the movement, there may be the chances for the occurrence of Perthes disease or osteochondritis of the head of femur. So this is the Perthes disease in which there is flattening of the head of femur, and this is osteochondritis of head of femur, which is caused by the avascular necrosis of the bone under the cartilage. Then this is the stability of the hip. One of the most stable joints in the human body is the hip joint, but there may be the congenital dislocations which are also common. Approximately 1.5 per 1000 live births, there may be the chances for congenital dislocation. This is more in case of female than male, and for this detection we use ultrasound. Then this is the tumor of the hip joint in the young healthy athletes. They also can be the sufferer of the cancer. Fortunately, most tumors are benign, and this is assessed by the bone pain at the night. Then the labrum tears or the cartilage loss. The labrum tears and the cartilage loss are common in patients with mechanical symptoms in the hip. In the young active patients with a complaint of growing pain, the diagnosis of a labrum tear should be suspected as investigated as radiographs. Then ischial bursitis, that is inflammation of the ischial bursa. It is also known as weaver's bottom. So when sitting, the weight of the body rests on the ischial tuberosities, and the ischial bursa become inflamed due to excessive friction, which is mainly done by the weavers used legs to power the treadles by repeated leg extension, causing inflammation of the ischial bursa. This is the ischial bursitis, or we can say the weaver's bottom. Then pincer impingement. In this, the acetabular covers too much of the femoral head. In the diagram we can see the head of the femur is covered more than the normal by the acetabular cavity. It occurs in females of 30 to 40 years of age. So this is pincer impingement. In this, the movements are restricted. Then cam impingement. Cam impingement means there is loss of roundedness, which is causing abnormal contact between the head and the socket. It is occurring in males of 20 to 30 years of age. So here we can see the cam impingement. Then coxa valga. It is seen in congenital dislocation of hip, rickets. There is softening of the neck of femur. In coxa valga, the joint, the angle between the neck and the shaft of femur is increased. It is more than the normal. That is, the normal angle is from 120 to 130. In case of coxa valga, this angle is increased. Opposite is the case of coxa vara. When the neck shaft angle is decreased, it is known as coxa vara. So these are the two conditions of coxa valga and vara. In vara, the neck shaft angle is decreased, and in valga, the neck shaft angle is increased. It's similar to the case of genu valga and varum. Then Shenton's line. In the radiographical images, we can see the Shenton's line, which is an imaginary curved line drawn along the superior border of the obturator foramen and along the infero-medial border of the neck of femur. This line should be continuous and smooth in case of normal hip joint. If there is any discrepancy in the curve of this joint, that may be the chances for dislocation of the hip joint. Then we have shoemaker's line. It is a straight line from tip of the greater trochanter to the anterior superior iliac spine up to the umbilicus. If greater trochanter is elevated in fracture neck, the line is passing below the umbilicus. So this completes our topic, the hip joint. Thank you. Now when you study about the hip joint, there are some questions regarding that which can be asked in your exams. The question is, write in detail about the hip joint under the following headings. So these are the headings like type and articulating surfaces. So in this point you will enumerate the type of this joint and what are the articulating surfaces which are taking part in formation of this joint. Then the second point is ligaments. So you have to mention about the ligaments, the attachments which are responsible for stabilization of the joint, and then you will discuss about the movements of the joint. What are the movements occurring at this joint, what are the muscles causing these movements, what is the plane, what is the axis of these movements, what is the range of these movements which are occurring at the hip joint. And in the last you will mention about the applied anatomy related to the hip joint and also draw the related diagrams. And this is the exercise for you, and you have to draw this diagram in your files, and you have to mention all the unlabeled images, the parts of the hip joint, the ligaments of the hip joint in the diagram. This completes your topic, the hip joint. Thank you.